Hi, it's Tess from teachwithtess.com and I'm here today from my garden. Again, not very nice today, but never mind. And on my channel, you'll find everything you need to know about Wales English, being an ESL teacher and working from home. Now, if you like my channel, please subscribe, like the videos that I make, because then you'll be alerted to new content which comes every week. So today, as part of our In Conversation With series, I'm interviewing Rachel Baker. Now, Rachel works for Outschool. Outschool is not an ESL company. It's completely different. You may have heard of it. So if you're a teacher or you want to teach something you're passionate about, you don't have a degree, you don't want to teach languages, this could be for you. So stay tuned. Here is Rachel. Right, so here we are with Rachel, who's going to talk about Outschool. So hi, Rachel.
Hello.
It's so nice to have you here today, and I just thought it would be really interesting to learn lots about Outschool, which is a really hot topic at the moment, and I think there are a lot of people wanting to know more. So maybe you could start just giving me and everyone a little bit of background about you and also how you made the move into Outschool, maybe.
Yes. So I'm Rachel. I have my background in education, so I am a teacher, full on, always have been. My bachelor's, my master's were all early childhood special education. Mm-hmm. So early on, I did a lot of early intervention, developmental therapy. I worked with the babies a lot. And then I also taught third grade for about 5 years. So that was totally different. And then I have 2 kiddos of my own. My daughter is about to be 12. Makes me feel really old. She's going into junior high and I can't even handle it.
My kids are 24 and 21. I'm an old woman. Anyway, carry on.
No, that gives me peace in my soul. So, and then I have a son, he's 9.5, and he is actually on the autism spectrum.
Right.
And so that's a whole other component of life. The good Lord knew I needed that training in my tool bag. So we have that going on. And so with that, our schooling has been different too. We've done some at home school, we've done some traditional school. It just every year is different. Okay. So I have all of that coming in. And then about 3.5 years ago, I had really awful health issues and couldn't teach in the classroom anymore. I had to be at home, and I found what I did, which is online teaching ESL for kids in China. And I've been doing that for 3 years. Love it. But the hours are tricky, living in America and having to teach on Beijing time. And then I also had several people who would say, I want to teach online too. But with a lot of those ESL companies, you have to have your bachelor's. Yeah. And a lot of them wouldn't have a bachelor's degree. And so I found Outschool. Just this year, it was probably February-ish, and it's 2020. And I came across it, and you do not have to have a bachelor's degree. Yeah. And it's an American-based company, so it's like normal American teaching hours. And even with the time difference, we get quite a few kids that are in India, Australia, the UK. It just, depending on how it fits their schedule. So it's kind of a global thing, but for teachers in America, it's our schedules. So I jumped full on into that. I'm still doing VIP Kid, right, but I love Outschool.
Well, it sounds amazing. So let's start with the really important things, like what are Outschool's requirements for anyone who's interested in teaching?
Yeah. So it's a lot more basic. You have to be 18 years old. You do not have to have a degree of any kind, college or anything like that. You have to have a decent command of the English language, written and spoken, but having an accent of some sort is not really a big deal. You do have to have access to the internet, obviously, and computer. You've got to have the webcam and microphone, but you can have it just built into your computer. It doesn't have to be external stuff. And then you have to have a full-time residence. I always make sure I say this right. It's not about your nationality. It's about where you live full-time. Okay. And there's 5 countries. It's the U.S., it is Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. And that's just because they do a background check before they let you teach children.
Yeah.
And those are the countries they have the arrangement with.
Okay.
So, and then you've got to have an area that you are really knowledgeable about or passionate about that you could teach on.
Okay. Maybe actually that would lead quite nicely before we go into to dig deeper in other areas. So because obviously, you know, you've been working with VIP Kid, I'm with Wales English, so it's a fairly straight, we teach English. That's not a hard thing. But what about at school? What, you know, somebody who's interested even, what can you teach?
Whatever you want, really. They have standards. You know, everything has to be secular. It has to be appropriate for children. You can't preach your religion. You know, you could do a secular class studying different religions. Okay. That would kind of wash the line, I think.
Yeah.
But they do, you know, they have certain standards like that. But really, there's a whole slew of academic classes, any and all academics. It's ages 3 to 18. So you'll find pre-K circle time and colors and shapes, and then you'll find high school chemistry, calculus. But then outside of academics, there's also a whole host of arts and crafts, different hobbies, life skills, how to do a budget, cooking and baking, and technology. It's just all over the map. Whatever parents are willing to pay for, that's what you can teach.
It's fantastic. I was Googling it earlier, and the top classes, or the favourites, I think they call it. One was unicorns. So you can teach a class about unicorns. How cool is that?
Yes. Yeah, my daughter actually took one not long ago. It was just all about mythological creatures. And they studied certain creatures that are in books, but then they got to create their own. So it was learning and also artsy and creative. She gobbled it up. She loved it so much.
How cool.
So, and that was it. That was the whole class.
And that's just a one-off. So you said earlier, obviously, that it's an American-based company. So what sort of, and you're not having to get up in the middle of the night to teach. Yes. So what sort of hours will you teach? How does it work, teaching times?
It really, you can teach at whatever hours work for you. They will say, like, maybe this is a better day here or peak times here, but that changes all the time, just depending on the seasons and what else is going on.
Yeah.
I personally, you know, I get up and I teach for VIP Kid early, and then right after that, I'll do a few classes just till about lunchtime. And that's, you know, I could probably schedule some in the afternoons or evenings or weekends. Some people do that, but I do what fits my schedule.
Sure.
And people that's convenient for, that's who I get.
That sounds really cool, though. I love it. So it's really, really flexible. And what about the pay? How much can you earn? Because I think it's quite different, isn't it?
It is very different. Yeah. So with most other companies, especially ESL, you know, teaching English, they set your pay per class. This is how much you'll make every time you teach a class. With Outschool, you decide what your fee is and you charge per student, and they are small group classes.
Yeah.
So if you have a class that you offer one time and you say you'll take up to 8 students and it's $10 a student, that's $80 that you just made in that one 45-minute, hour-long class.
Sure.
Outschool does take 30% off the top. That's like their company fee, but it's because they provide the teaching platform. It's all in Zoom. They provide Zoom for you. They do your marketing for you. They email parents. They advertise on Facebook. So all of that's kind of the overhead fee.
Yeah. So you don't actually have to do any marketing of yourself. It's all through Outschool. They're providing the students for you. Okay.
Right. Which you can, you know, share your classes on your own Facebook page or Instagram or, you know, with people that know you and follow you. And that helps. Yeah. But it is nice to know that they are also putting your information out there.
Yeah, absolutely. How interesting. I'm going to have a real look. But it's only for children. I can't pretend to be a bit younger and do a class on mythological creatures. I'd love to.
You can teach whatever you want. Whatever.
Yeah,
and I said,
if I want to be the student.
Yeah, no, you can't be the student. And we've had some like, can I take your class? Can I do that?
Yeah, I love the idea of mythological creatures and making one. My daughter would love that, but she's 21. Anyway, never mind. And now this is very much, I'm asking this because a lot of the people on here are ESL teachers. Do you need any form of TEFL, CELTA, TESOL certificate? I'm assuming not, but...
No, the only reason you would need anything like that is if you wanted to offer ESL classes.
Okay.
So whatever it is that you say, this is what I want to teach, you have to back that up with experience or certifications. You know, I can't get on there and teach a class about proper nutrition. I'm not a registered dietitian. That's not, you know, I can be like, oh, here's healthy food and unhealthy food, but to really get into it and offer a nutrition class, I'm not certified to do that. And Outschool will say, you're not really qualified for this. So it does have to be an experience that you've had, a passion that you have, credentials to back it up. You know, I could teach special education classes, developmental classes for younger kids, whereas someone else might not have that background.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And how about, so I was going to ask a little bit about, I suppose curriculum's not really the right word because you're setting your own thing. So if you have an idea for a class, how do you, I mean, let's talk about the application process because this will probably lead into this, won't it? How does that look and how do you get to choose what you teach? What do you need qualifications wise?
Right. So they actually just recently revamped the application process a bit. So so I'm still like doing this, making sure I'm on it. But there's 4 main questions. You have to share your experience working with children.
Yeah.
And, you know, not necessarily I've taught in a classroom formal thing, but volunteering, tutoring, whatever it is, homeschooling.
Yeah.
Share what your experience specifically is. They want to know what your experience is and your credentials in whatever field it is you want to focus on. And you may have 10 different ideas of things you want to teach. But really to apply, you need to kind of hone in on one and then know that you have the flexibility to add things in later. Because they want to know, what are you really most excited about? How are you qualified to teach that? And then what will that look like? So they want your background, they want your experience, they want your credentials, if you have a degree or certification of some sort. And then what are you most excited to teach? Explain that. And they kind of want a little summary of, if, you know, your first class, what's that going to look like? You know, just a one-time 30-minute class, what will you do? What will the activities be? So you don't have to have like a very specific lesson plan, but you need to kind of have in mind, if I were to teach, this is what my class would look like.
I was going to say, you really do need to have an idea of what you're going to do first, don't you? And how much, I mean, what sort of, so you do that, you submit it. How long does it take for them to decide whether or not you can teach to having students?
Yeah, it's been all over the place because of the growth they're experiencing right now. So I've had some people I've helped through applying and getting their class submitted, and within 3 or 4 days, they're ready to go. They're up and ready to teach. But they had all their stuff together, they got it right in, and it was a really quick turnaround. I've had others that it went a couple of weeks, 2 or 3 weeks, just because of how long it's taking them to approve things. Or if there's a hiccup with your background check for some reason because COVID and offices are shut down all over the place. So just kind of depending on where you live and what office they use, that can affect it right now.
Yeah, that's a really good point.
But it's usually, I mean, within a week to 2 or 3 weeks, people are ready to start teaching.
And how long are the classes?
It's up to you.
Again, is that flexible?
Everything. Everything is complete. You are, more than any other company I've seen like what we do, this is the most flexible, true independent contractor teaching position, because you decide what you teach, you decide how many classes, how long the class is, how much you charge for the class, how many students you'll take. I mean, it's just whatever you want to do.
Yeah. And then if you want to go on holiday, you just go on holiday.
Schedule classes for that time. Yeah. I did that recently. It was like, oh, we're going to take a trip. I'm going to not work this week. And I just didn't open classes for that week. And I made sure I had some open for when we got back, and they filled up and just got right back to it. So
That's
it's really, you can do a 30-minute one-time class and just kind of like the mythological creatures we talked about, just sit and do the one class. And it's kind of like you think about university classes where everyone has to take college algebra, but they can't all fit at one time. So there's one on Monday at 8:30, there's one Tuesday at 1 o'clock. You pick the one that works for your schedule, but it's all the same class. So you teach the same thing over and over to different students, right? You can also do multi-day classes where maybe they're 5 weeks long and you meet once or twice a week for 5 weeks because you have that much material. So it's just so broad. You can make it work for you, really.
You can see why so many people are getting so excited about it, can't you? You really can. And I would imagine, as you know, you're still with VIP Kids, so American teachers, I mean, and even for those, I mean, based in the UK, and of course Beijing hours for me is a wonderful thing because I teach from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. summer and 9 to 1 in winter, so I can get to sleep, unlike you.
Right.
But I could potentially still teach without school in the evening if I had the energy, wish to, or whatever. So you can have, because a lot of companies have minimum requirements of hours that need to be open, but Outschool doesn't. Yeah, so you just literally say 1 hour, that's it.
This week I am working a total of 2.5 hours because we had total for the whole week, just because that's what I had available this week with everything else going on. Now another week I may work 7 hours altogether for the week. It just I look at my schedule and go, this is what I can fit in there. But that's also an extra $100 I made this week, working 2.5 hours.
Yeah, that's really good. It's well worth doing, isn't it?
It is.
It's really well worth doing. And things like bookings, because obviously we just talked about opening and closing slots. How far in advance, what does a sort of typical schedule look like? Do you plan for months? Do you plan just week on week? Or
everybody does it differently, but they recommend you plan at least a week or 2 out, because that gives them time to advertise for you as well. If you're like, hey, this week I'm going to open these classes, nobody knows you've opened them.
Of course.
And so if you go a week or 2 out, even a month, give yourself a month of classes, that's good and gives parents time to book you. But like right now, we're wrapping up summer, coming up on August, and they're saying, come August 1, we want to start advertising our fall classes. Because a lot of people homeschool and use this as their curriculum, or they'll supplement for their curriculum. And now with COVID, a lot of people are homeschooling that would not have otherwise, and they know they have support from Outschool for a lot of that. So they're starting to budget and plan schedule for the fall. So some people are planning all the way up through December right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you've got the content, and if you're, you have, as you would, let's talk about our mythological creatures class, and it's a roaring success. So I'm assuming you can just sort of put that in 3 times a week up to Christmas, and that might be all you ever teach.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And another question I had is, if, for instance, somebody does, they get through, they get in, is there anything that attracts parents more than others? Are there certain subject classes, or is it apps, numbers of students, prices? What is the best thing to do to get the most amount of bookings that you?
I would say the best thing to do is to stick to your strengths. Because what I've noticed, because every parent is different, there are some parents that really want strong academics. There are some parents that they're good there, but their kid is lacking social interaction right now. And I mean, we have maybe an ongoing class that meets once a week, and for a whole hour, they just talk about Minecraft. That's it. It's social hour about Minecraft, because the parents are like, my ears are bleeding. I can't listen to this anymore. I will pay you, please, to talk to my child. You know that feeling.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
And that's a real thing. That's an Outschool class that exists. And so because there are all needs, it's best to stick to what you know and love the best, because when you try to branch out and do things that you think will go well, but it's not really your thing, they can see that. They can tell it's not your thing.
Yeah.
And so when you are excited and passionate about what you're teaching, they get excited with you. And I've just noticed that just does better.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. It's so easy to talk about something we love. It's very clear that you're very passionate about very, very passionate about Outschool. I must admit, I love these in conversation things that I'm doing, because it's so interesting to see how very different all of these companies are, whether they're ESL or other, but it's all online and things that you can do working from home, which is really important.
Working from home.
Love working from home. It's fantastic. Another question about pay. So you set your own pay. Now, how do you get paid?
PayPal.
It's all PayPal.
It's all through PayPal. Yes, you give them, that's part of your profile, is your PayPal email address.
Okay.
And they, every week, it's not every week, it is 1 week after your class. So for instance, a week ago, last Thursday, I taught a class. Today, the pay for that class will come through my PayPal account.
Okay.
And it's for every class individually. So you can see, like, my 9:30, here comes that pay. My 10:30, here comes that pay.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It's so you can really keep track of it. Very clear. It'll say, 9:30 to 10 o'clock on this date, this class, here's your pay for it.
Okay.
So it's very itemized.
And it's Outschool that pays you. It's not the parents.
Right.
It's Outschool.
Right. The parents pay Outschool.
And
they take their chunk and then they pay you through PayPal.
Otherwise, it'd be crazy.
Right. And it's a little different for each class type. There are 4 different types of classes.
Oh, yeah.
We talked about the one-time, the multi-day, and then there's that ongoing one. There's another one where you're not live in Zoom, but you communicate through the classroom, through emails with the students. It's still a set amount of time, but you're not glued into one date and one time to meet. They have a little more, it's called flexible classes, but they have more flexibility to complete the material.
Okay.
Which is nice.
Okay.
And so, but they all pay at different times.
Yeah.
Depending on which one you choose.
Yeah.
But it's all within about a week.
Okay, so you're basically potentially being paid on a weekly basis if you're teaching every week.
Mm-hmm. And if you're working every day of every week, you may be getting paid on a daily basis.
Yahoo! It's Christmas every day.
Girl, I was on vacation like a week ago. My husband and I took a trip, just like 3 days. And while we were there, I was like, we should go shopping. Like, I just got paid again. Let's go shopping. It's not good.
Yeah. Oh, it sounds so interesting. It really does. It's really, really good. Now, what else? I'm just wondering if there's anything else I haven't asked you. I know this sounds a bit of an odd one. What about, because we're both ESL teachers and rewards are a big part of our teaching. What about Outschool? Do they encourage any form of teacher behavior, or not behavior, that sounds really odd, use of anything, all of the sort of skills that we use as ESL teachers, are they replicated other than good explanations?
I'm with you. It's completely different, I would say. For one, and I learned this very quickly in my first Outschool class that I taught.
Yeah.
I had to pick up the pace a little bit in my speaking, because we're used to saying, hello, how are you? No, I don't have to do that now. They speak the same language I do.
So that's a really good point, actually. Everyone, because you said there are people in India and there, and you get, but you teach in English, and they all will understand English 100%.
Yes. I've had 1 or 2 where the mom will say, like, we have limited English skills, but they understand that that's expected coming into the class, and so they just keep up as best they can.
Yeah.
That's the issue. You're not expected to, slow it down. But as far as like reward systems or prompts, it's really just if it applies to what you're teaching.
Yeah.
If I had a lesson, like my preschool lessons, yes, I'm busting out the props because it calls for learning colors and shapes and all the things, flashcards. But if I'm teaching high school, I'm not gonna bust out my props. Yeah. No, it's not the same.
Here's my microphone.
Yeah. Right. No, it's not as needed. And also with that, I would say parent feedback is another question I get a lot, is do you have to give parent feedback for your students? No, you do not. And again, it's based on what you're teaching. So if you do just like a one-time quick class,
Yeah.
I generally will send just an overall message to everyone. It was so great meeting everyone today. I love hearing about whatever it was. If you liked the class, be sure to rate it because they can give you a star rating
Very
so that other
important.
parents know that it's a good class and you're a good teacher. And that's it. I just do one blanket message to all of the parents.
Okay.
I don't have to say, Susie did this.
No.
This.
Oh, that's really
Yeah,
good.
if you're doing a longer class where it's more academic, there might be a little more of, if one is struggling, maybe you message the parent privately, like, we really need to practice this skill, but it's not required.
No.
Right?
Do you set homework ever? Can you?
Yes.
Do you want to?
You can.
You can.
I mean, it can be, like I said, there are quite a few. Outschool started as a homeschool type system. It was for homeschool families. And, you know, about 6 years ago when they got up and going, that was their clientele.
Yeah.
Well, then we all went home.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing school at home.
Absolutely.
And it exploded because it was a way to continue that. So that's why it has grown so much recently. It's because there's been more of a need. But with those homeschool families, some of them are just needing the activities and assignments to learn the skills, whereas others are using this like as their record-keeping system to show mastery.
Yeah.
So I have one class coming up that's more of a novel study, and I offer assessments, I offer grading and feedback if they need that for their records, but it's not something I'll automatically do for everyone.
Okay, fair enough. I get that. So it's you know, the prep, I'm assuming, well, if you're doing a one-off class, you only do it once and then you don't need to do it again. There's always going to be prep. Is there anything else that I haven't asked? Is there anything else that's really, you know, you want to shout out about Outschool that I haven't asked you about?
I will say, I didn't address this earlier with the application, but the biggest change they made to the application now, you know, we talked about sharing your experience and your passion and what you want to teach. They also have a video component that you do for the application. So there's information you fill out, and then they ask you to do a 3 to 5 minute video. And they really just want to kind of see an example of you teaching whatever that is you said you want to teach. So it doesn't have to be the whole class. You just need to kind of say, okay, this section I could probably do on camera, pretend there are students, because they want to see, one, that you're not like sitting in bed in your PJs. That you have decent lighting, that, I mean, like this seems kind of over the top, I know for most people, but this is like what I do all day, every day. So I have the teacher background. But even just to have a solid, clean background instead of your chaotic house behind you, you know, they need to see
your
that you're
kitchen
prepared to teach.
with the dog running around and the kids yelling in the corner. That makes sense. Okay. That's really interesting. That is fascinating. I'm going to have a look for myself a little bit further into Outschool, I think. Now, come to see me. Come on, Tess. So, as I was about to say, if like me, your curiosity is piqued, and you went, ooh, Rachel, ooh, can you help me? Now, what can people do to contact you? Obviously, I'm going to put lots of stuff in the description box below, so they can reach out. But what would you like to say about how you coach people, how you help them?
Yep. So the best first thing to do is email me. And that is mercifulmornings@gmail.com. That's the best, because even if you use my application link, I get your first name.
Yeah.
That's it. That's all they'll give me. So I have no way to actually contact you to provide the resources and the coaching and all the things that I have. Because I do provide a ton of free stuff for people that are my personal referrals. So email's the best. I do have the application link. I have an application checklist. I have a template for creating your course. There's also fun.
That sounds fun.
And then I've also got my website. It's mercifulmornings.com, and it's all on there too.
Okay. Well, listen, Rachel, I hope you're going to have a influx of people going, Rachel, help me.
It's so fun. It's so fun. Come do it.
I must admit, I'm very tempted. I'm looking around thinking, now what am I good at? What could I teach? I just think that's such a great idea. It's such a wonderful idea to really tap into people's own strengths and passions and resources, and not just ask them to teach something, but to really allow
and
them
that's
to
been
Wonderful.
that's been one of my favorite things about coaching people to do this job, is that, you know, at first it'll be like, well, I don't know, I have time with that, or they'll be doing ESL and the curriculum is provided, and I've been teaching the same thing for 2 or 3 years now. I'm so tired, I need something different. And then they get into it and go, I really love this. I kind of pull that out. What is it that makes you excited, that you love, that you could share? And then they'll do it and be like, this is the most fun ever. You know?
And do you ever find, actually, I'm just wondering, when you're teaching, do you ever find that sort of reactions from some of the kids actually pique your idea and think, oh, I could do that? And another...
I've had that happen. I actually just created a new class based on something like that happened. And I was like, oh, I could teach that too. And it was a math thing. Someone was like, well, what about this? And I was like, I'm going to teach that too.
That's such a great idea. So it just sounds an absolute dream. So I'm going to, as I said, leave everything in the description box for people to get hold of you. And just a huge thank you, Rachel. It's been fascinating, interesting. I may well be one of the first to email you and find out a bit more. But it's absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and have a wonderful day, because you're over in the States. I'm looking at the evening here now in the UK.
Yeah, we're coming up on lunchtime here, so I probably should feed my children at some point.
Go and feed your mum. Thanks so much, Rachel, and I'll speak to you soon. It's lovely to see you again.
There you go. I really hope that helped you and that you enjoyed discovering Outschool. Of course, Rachel is more than happy to help you. All of her details are in the description box underneath. So I'm going to say goodbye, and I'll see you soon.